Hey, what's up YouTube? It's True Justice Fighter 1 Up here coming at you again on my never-ending mission to reveal all the truths while also gaming the fuck on. And yeah, it's good to be back. I've been having trouble uploading my previous videos because I fucked up on the first one. And then I made a really good clip the second time, but I used the old clip from the fucked up version. And then the third time, I couldn't share it at all. So it's just good to be back. And last couple of videos I wanted to touch on three subjects, which were what the fuck is an RPG, should you buy every game in a franchise, and oppression in gaming part 2. So yeah, I don't give a fuck because even the subjects can have a part 2 here, but yeah, let's get this started. Obviously I've changed subjects and I want to discuss more things, but I couldn't upload my previous videos, so I just want to get down to it, and I'm going to load up a chapter because I think I fucked up the last playtime, so this is going to be a case of deja vu, but whatever, I don't give a fuck. Alright, I'm going to overwrite this save file. So yeah, first thing I wanted to get into is what is an RPG. Now, an RPG, even way before video games, were tabletop board games that you can get like a few nerds together to play, and each player would basically play a role, and you know, they would roll dice, and the main component of RPGs back then were the stat increases. Like there was a lot of stat crunching and number crunching, stuff like that, and I believe that that's what a RPG is, you know, games that have like stat and number crunching and stuff like that. Like for instance, Dragon Age Origins is an RPG, and Final Fantasy, the Final Fantasy series are RPGs, but the difference being that Dragon Age Origins is a Western RPG, or the Dragon Age games are Western RPGs, and the Final Fantasy games are Japanese RPGs, or abbreviated as JRPGs. But yeah, I just wanted to touch on that. And also that games like Zelda and Assassin's Creed are not RPGs, those are action-adventure games. The same as how this game right now, The Last of Us, is action-adventure. Sure, there is a few stat increases here and there, but it's not a main component of the game. You know, like, you know, in this game you sort of like upgrade certain shit that you get and stuff like that. But in Zelda too, but you know, it's not a main focus of the game. Like, you're not constantly having to worry about stat crunching. So over here, I just wanted to touch on that. And like for instance, I remember two RPGs of my childhood that I remember playing. I'm a 90s kid, so you know, when it came to gaming, PS2, like if you didn't have a PS2, you were not considered a real gamer. So yeah, I had a PS2, and one of the games that got me into RPGs and gaming in general was the original Kingdom Hearts. Like I've mentioned that like tons of times. The original Kingdom Hearts is actually weird that it's an RPG, but it's an action RPG, and it's also a Japanese RPG. You know, like there is stat crunching, and there's also exploration, but there's also platforming and real-time action elements added to it. So Kingdom Hearts is an RPG, but it's an action RPG, or JRPG since it's from Japan. It's Japanese developed mostly. And yeah, that game got me into Final Fantasy, which is the Final Fantasy games. I got into Final Fantasy X right after playing the original Kingdom Hearts, and the Final Fantasy games are all RPGs. They're all JRPGs, and the Final Fantasy games are my favorite franchise. So yeah, just to clarify, that is what an RPG is. I mean, Zelda and Assassin's Creed is an action-adventure game. You're just jumping from, like, you know, rooftops and shit, assassinating guys and engaging in combat and progressing the story. But there's no RPG elements, like you have to raise, like, stats like strength or defense or agility or anything like that. You know, or you don't have to worry about it getting decreased throughout the course of the game or anything like that. So yeah, Assassin's Creed isn't an RPG, and also Zelda isn't an RPG, and you know, a lot of people call Zelda an RPG, which I don't know how, because Zelda is very much a action-adventure game. So much so that the term Zelda clone used to be thrown around during the early 2000s because there are a lot of cookie cutter games just copying the Zelda formula. One of my favorite game of all time actually is one of those games, but I consider it better than Zelda, or you know, it just refined the whole Zelda gameplay and perfected it, and that is Beyond Good and Evil, and that is an RPG. So yeah, RPG games are basically games with stat crunching, and it's been that way before video games, you know, with you know, RPG board games. So yeah, and on to my second thing. Should you buy a game in every franchise? Now, here it comes. Zelda, Assassin's Creed, Final Fantasy, and Kingdom Hearts. And they're all like big name franchises that make a lot of money and they're always pumping out games. But does that mean like the fans should buy every game? Well, that's the fans' decision in my opinion. I'm just going to craft a health kit here. Yeah, ultimately that's the fans' decision, but the thing about it is that even though it is the fans' decision to buy every single game in a franchise, I don't think they should do something like that. And also, you know, certain games have a dip in quality too. So yeah, like for instance, I'm a huge Final Fantasy fan, so I would buy every single numbered Final Fantasy games because the Final Fantasy games have a formula where every single mainline entry isn't the same as the last one, you know, but there are numerous spin-offs and titles as such, you know, one of them being the Final Fantasy Tactics series, for instance. Like, I remember getting into the Final Fantasy Tactics way back on Game Boy Advance with Final Fantasy Tactics Advance, and that was an awesome game. Oh wait, let me read this. Arc throw by pressing L2, throw with R2, blind fire throw, whatever. So yeah, I mean, Final Fantasy Tactics Advance was amazing on the GBA, and I played the shit out of it. And I love the gameplay element of it because like it's portable and strategic, and there's also stat crunching RPG elements. Like I said, what the fuck is an RPG? But also because like, you know, I got really into it and I wanted to play more of it, so I decided to go with the original. Back in the day, I remember going to my local game store. And I was gonna purchase BioShock then, but because I thought it was $40, but it was actually $50. It was $49.99 instead of like $39.99. So I was just like, what game should I get? Okay, I don't really have a lot of PSP games back then, so I picked up Final Fantasy Tactics: The War of the Lions. And I mentioned in a previous episode that that game was sort of educational and that I've learned about astrology and the like from it. I loved it. So from that point on, I got really hooked onto tactical RPGs, as the term would be used for Final Fantasy Tactics games. And I purchased, right after finishing Final Fantasy Tactics War of the Lions, I purchased Final Fantasy Tactics A2, or Final Fantasy Tactics Advance 2 for DS, and I thought that game was garbage. I mean, the graphics were great and the music was great, top-notch quality stuff, but the gameplay was just so broken. There was so many broken elements. Like, the gameplay in that game was like, it was so slow, and it was broken in that like you would have moments where like you would get like a ton of different items, like say for instance Phoenix Downs that you can use to like revive party members, you know, characters. You can revive them with that item, but the thing about it was that that fucking item didn't do shit. Like when a person died in combat, they just disappeared and you couldn't use it on them. So, you know, the game was pretty broken, and I felt really cheated out of $40 for that game. So yeah, long story short, should you buy every game in a franchise? Of course not, but if it's a franchise you trust and you know what you're doing, go ahead, knock yourself out. I wouldn't buy every game in the Assassin's Creed series because the Assassin's Creed series has grown stale. You know, I've played 1 to 3, and that's it. I haven't tried Unity, I haven't tried Black Flag, and I don't intend to because I like the first Assassin's Creed. There were a lot of great things about it that I felt was done a lot better in that game than other games, but it was just way too repetitive. Assassin's Creed 2 was an improvement, and then I think I played 3, and I sort of like that one. But yeah, it's the same thing, and it's just at this point Ubisoft should be ashamed of themselves for milking it. So no, you shouldn't buy every single game in a franchise unless you know what you're doing and it's a franchise that you know you can trust. Like I trust Final Fantasy, I trust Final Fantasy 15, and I would gladly buy every single numbered version of Final Fantasy just to play through it because I've played through most of them. And the last thing, oppression in gaming. Now, I mean, I was watching another YouTuber by the name Proto Mario talk about oppression in gaming, and this is part 2 to that because I felt that it should be mentioned. Like, growing up as a kid, I was never spoiled. Like, there would be times where I was a little kid, like 7 years, like, you know, like 5 to 7 years old and stuff like that. And I remember when PlayStation 1 and N64 came out, I always wanted those systems. I got new weapon revolver. Let's see what they say here. Okay, got it. Oh, weapon slotting. You can carry more guns and you have holsters. Extra guns are stored in your inventory and can be swapped with an equipped gun. Select the weapon to swap out. Hold X to bring up your inventory. Cycle through until the gun you want is in the equipped slot. Then press X. Press X to continue. Okay, X, X, X. Okay. Alright, so yeah, and the thing about it was that even though I was a kid, I was never spoiled. You know, I came from a poor country. We only had like one television. I mean, I had other consoles like NES and Sega Genesis, as I've mentioned before, but those were hand-me-downs. You know, those were like consoles that relatives got bored of and just decided to give it to me. And you know, I was grateful. I played like games like there was like a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle game on the NES and Jaws and a bunch of other games on Genesis as well. You got Golden Axe and Sonic and Toe Jam and Earl, you know, but I never got a PlayStation 1 or N64 when I wanted to as a kid, even though I played the shit out of N64s at some good friends' houses. You know, one of my I had friends that I would go game at their house, and it was pretty cool. I played like N64 games like Pokemon Snap and Pokemon Stadium and, you know, other shit like, you know, shitty Rugrats puzzle game, which was actually kind of cool, and Load Runner and shit like that. But you know, I never owned a console. It wasn't until PS2 that I really started getting into gaming. Like I said, you know, when I got a PS2, one of the earliest games I remember getting was Kingdom Hearts. I got that during like Christmas time of '02 because I was a huge like anime fan as well. You know, Toonami was on. I thought it was a Disney anime style type of deal, but it wasn't. It was actually really cooler than that. And I loved Kingdom Hearts and got really into it. I got a PS1 well after the PS2 was out, but I'll get into that in another episode. So yeah, oppression in games can sometimes stem from family. Like I said, I've always, as a kid, always wrote like on Christmas wish lists, like I want a PS1 or N64, and I never got it from my dad, even though, you know, he damn well had enough money and stuff, but, you know, I never got it because, you know, they're afraid. My dad has something against gaming. He has something against me as well. So, yeah. Oppression in gaming. Blah, blah, blah. So, long story short, what is an RPG? Since way before video games, they've always been a game where you played a role, obviously, hence the name role-playing game, but you had, like, stat crunching to do. Should you buy a game in every franchise? Sure, if it's a franchise you trust, but I wouldn't give my money to franchises that have grown stale. So when it comes to that, do your research. Oppression in gaming, not cool. So that's all I wanted to get off my chest, and I'm glad I have. So until next time, True Justice Fighter 1 up here, signing out.